Wonder Woman is launching into theaters, and spoiler alert,
it's wonderful?
Who would wield it?
Only the fiercest among us even could. And that is not you, Diana.
I'm Roth Cornett.
I'm Andy Signor.
And we loved Wonder Woman. Yep, we're saying it right up top. Andy, let's get into it right away. Did you go into this film with any concerns?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen the other DC films, which I've been on record as being frustrated with. I think a lot of people are mean on us here that we're harsh on those films, but I think they're very overly complicated. They have trouble hitting the character, at least the way I like those characters in the comics. And I think in this, I went in expecting a lot of that, or a little bit of okay, they're going to introduce the Justice League, they're going to do these things. And I was so pleasantly surprised to see the film as a standalone story with a really good character origin and amazing chemistry and really great performances. And you care about these people in a way that I haven't in other previous recent DCU films. So I was wonderfully surprised.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we hear a lot of complaints about origin stories in comic book movies, right?
I hate them, yeah.
Which a lot of times I think that's fair, but this particular origin story felt necessary because A, this is the first time that she's had her own movie, and I think that not everyone would be as familiar with her origin. So, and it's a really interesting story and very well told here how they placed her in time, right? So to me, it made perfect sense, her reaction to the world around her, the fact that she was just getting used to it, and to put her in that time period of World War I, when this is a story of a warrior who's after peace, was perfect. That was such a great addition to this, because when she said, why is this way and that way, it was so unlike how she had been raised. There was an innocence to it that made sense.
Kudos to Patty Jenkins, because in the hands of another director, I think this could have been a mess.
I agree.
There's so much tonally you're doing. It's a war film. It's sort of this silly gods film that's like Thor-esque, and then it's a war film for it. So it's like, the context of this material could be done so poorly and not properly and not taken seriously, but when we get there to Themyscira and we meet these warriors and we see it and we see her as a child growing up, and I instantly felt for her, because I'm like, as a dad, it clicks in. But it just was this really powerful. They were protecting her, and they need to fight against the forces. I don't want to spoil things, but you really buy into it immediately, and then it's just this brilliant way of something that I think, similar to Thor, could have been done in a sort of a weird, cheesy way, but isn't done. You sort of buy it. Why are all these women on this island? I was okay with it all. They really sold me by the performances and by the story they were telling, that I was right on board. And then yes, because they build up the characters and explain all these things, when she goes to then war and goes, it connects beautifully. Yeah,
I will agree. That was one of the things that I was the most concerned about, was sort of marrying. She's a demigoddess, right? So marrying this epic sort of larger than life character in history with something as gruesome as World War I, right? But they were able to strike that balance, which is what I found remarkable. Just the image of her in no man's land, even you saw it in the trailers. You feel like on some level that shouldn't work, but it does. And I think that you're right, setting up who she is in that way initially. And if you think about the performances, Connie Nielsen.
Yeah. So good. Robin Wright.
And you feel like, now I understand who this woman is, because she is basically the combination of these two greatest influences in her life. Her aunt, the warrior, played by Robin Wright, and her mother, the queen, who is also a warrior, of course, but she actually is much more of a mother, loving, maternal. And those two things come together to create Diana. And that was the other thing that I thought would be really hard to capture. A warrior after peace, right? Who believes in a loving response, but will still fight. And they did it perfectly. And that's no easy task.
Right, and the thing I think that was also surprising me throughout was the connection of her to Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine, who just blew me away. Like, I was expecting, okay, whatever, but the chemistry between the two of them is just so perfect.
The chain.
It's just, you really are immediately just, it's adorable, it's touching in a way, it's fun, they're innuendos in a way, clever ways. Like, it's just done in this romantic sort of fun way that it actually becomes a sort of romantic film too, but never like in a sappy or felt forced sort of way. That totally threw me, and I didn't expect to really be invested in that relationship, which really helps you through, I think, the seriousness of No Man's Land, all these things, is sort of him humoring her and then him quickly realizing, oh wait, this woman's powerful, like, all right, take charge. Like, to watch that happen through the chemistry, it just made the film that much more exciting for me.
Yeah, that was the other interesting thing about it, is that it actually didn't take him too long, right? He was sort of on the island. He watched what was happening. He said, damn, okay, great, you know? And I think what was great about their relationship and that chemistry is, one, the humor was sold through the circumstances. It never felt forced. It was through the character and the circumstances. It was her not really understanding his world and him not really understanding hers, and kind of them trying to figure that out together. That was so well done. Genuinely funny, right? Even in the midst of all this, the support cast also helped with that. But two, was there these two different versions of heroism. It's her who has a divine version of heroism, and it is much more archetypal, right? Like, it's broad, she has big ideas and she's representing these big ideas. And him, who's way more human. And I felt like those two things came together really well, particularly in the climax of the story.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch them each help each other, almost become more heroic in a way, and you really believe it. And that was a wonderful surprise for me, as well as just the introduction of her in the armor is another one of those moments that stood out for me. They sort of hide the reveal, if you want to call it, of her becoming sort of Wonder Woman, and just that moment of theater was just like everyone you could just tell was like, whoa. Yeah. And then it continues and the action begins. And it's just fat, and the action's great. And like seeing her in action, like she's got a lasso and these things you kind of think like, oh, that's silly, but they totally sell it. It totally works.
I want to talk about really quickly Lucy Davis as Etta Candy, who is his secretary.
Yeah. More comedic relief.
More comedic relief, but again, it never feels forced or out of place. It's absolutely in line with what's happening. But then the big thing that I want to highlight coming out of this is Gal Gadot.
Yes.
Unbelievably perfectly cast. I mean, we saw it, right? We saw it in BVS. Everybody loved Wonder Woman coming out of BVS, but it's in this movie that you see how well she is able to play this character. And I got to admit, I was a little blown away by it, because she's able to play a range of emotions. Again, there is that innocence, which I think is a really difficult thing to do, and that ferocity. There's that balance there. And this character is a character that, brought to life well, is one that we want, is one that we need. It adds so much to comic book lore.
No, it's great, because I agree. It's the innocence and the confidence. She sort of juggles those two really well. And another thing that I liked about this film is it is a standalone story. It has sort of a bookend in present day, and then delves us into the story. And so you can even see in the present day moments, like the confidence and the intelligence and sort of the different version of Wonder Woman, even in those little scenes, compared to sort of the birth of Wonder Woman and her figuring out how to do all these things and be the hero. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just think she really showed more range and emotion than I expected in a way, because, you know, she's sort of been in Fast and the Furious movies, and she hasn't really had this opportunity, I think, to really shine. And I think she's definitely proved to be the Wonder Woman. I mean, we have a Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
How exciting is that?
It's so exciting. I can't wait to see where it goes next. I will say, like, so if you were going to quibble about this, right? Because nothing's going to be a perfect movie, and this isn't going to be a perfect movie, right? I don't know. I guess there are perfect movies out there. The Godfather 2,
no, it's not a perfect movie.
It's not a perfect movie.
It's a very well-made, just entertaining film.
Exactly.
It's like, I think you can go into this, and I'm sure comic fans will find. I don't want to get into spoilers and things, but I'm sure, of course, you could. My honest trailer brain can turn on and see faults in the film and little problems here and there. But I was amazed that the other stuff outweighed it for me so much that I didn't mind those little moments. But I mean, were there some you wanted to talk about?
So I would say this is that I think you're right. What really matters is how you feel at the end of the experience, because there's going to be flaws and imperfections in every film. But if at the end of the day you walk out and that's not what you're focused on, that tells you everything you need to know. And I was in no way focused on that. I was so happy and delighted and felt more emotional than I imagined I would at the beginning when I was walking out of this film. If I were to say that there were things, there are some. The villains are very arch, right?
There's a third act big bad sort of finale moment that's a little, but there's other elements that sort of made up for it in a way that I was pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah, I mean, they're very arch, and so that could bother you, but at the same time, I think that it fits with the story. They're telling a story of gods, you know? So to some degree, it makes sense to me to get very big with it. Second thing is it relies a lot on exposition, right? It relies a lot on exposition and voiceover and things like that to help you tell the story. But this is a lot of story to tell. And then tonally, that actually felt right to me in terms of telling this kind of comic book story. There were times that just felt like it fit, versus when in another movie you would think that they were just falling back on it.
Yeah, but then you compare the exposition to scenes of like Suicide Squad. It's like they're just completely worlds apart from me, because you have these real moments in between it that I agree there were moments that felt a little forced or whatnot. But there's nothing like, this is Katana, she's got my back, I advise not getting killed by her because her sword traps the swords. Like there's nothing like that, and so it's nice to see that they've, there's exposition problems, but I saw a lot of that. Just I could see, okay, we got to move this storyline. It's a lot of story to tell, which makes it harder to do as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I agree, and that's sort of my point, is that even with those challenges of saying, okay, I got to somehow relay this kind of like big, epic, ancient history, right? And then bring it into this world and set up who everyone is to each other and all of these larger than life ideas. So yeah, it does take a little bit of exposition, but this was the thing that amazed me. With all of those different elements in play, trying to locate this in our world, trying to have these two characters work together and tell all that story, the fact that they did it and that all I came out feeling was joy, and that I loved this character, and that I could not wait to see more of her, and that I loved her relationship with Steve and Chris Pine in a way that I agree. I like Chris Pine. I think he's a good actor, but this is some of his best in this movie, I really think. No,
I agree. And the other one, I think people are going to, unfairly whatever, but they're going to compare it to sort of Captain America First Avenger in a way. Yeah. And to me, this is what I wanted in that movie, of you really buy the character. It's not shoehorning in universe building in a way. I mean, it has there's a broader stroke, but it's a standalone story, like we've said. And I just think you really learn the characters' sort of change and growth in a way that film, I think, lacked a lot. You get it in later films. So I was just impressed that Warner Brothers and DC was able to sort of really not turn it into what I feel like their mistakes prior, like putting too much in and having to we have to plant these seeds, and wait a second, let's see if Cyborg can get in here. Like that stuff's all out so they could really focus on the character and the story for this, which that's how you do it. Yeah. It's like, finally, yes, tell us these really strong standalone stories.
And we've learned that before, right? We've learned that through Logan as well, and Deadpool. Focus on this character, focus on their story, focus on honoring who they are as a character, and then you'll walk away with a great movie. And that's what they did with this movie. I feel like you could be scared to roll all the way into who this character is and what she represents, particularly, and I won't give anything away, but there's in the final kind of epic climactic scene, she does have to have, going through what she does have to have her innocence broken a little bit, and she does have to evolve, and I think we'll see a different Diana in the movies going forward, and I'm excited about that. But she has a moment where she commits 100% to who she is, and they never back away from it, and I loved it. Yeah. I actually cried, and I know I'm being very vague right now. I can't say what happens because I don't want to ruin it for you.
No, it's emotional.
It's a very emotional moment.
Again, I was there too. I think a lot of the audience was, and I think for such a film with such sort of, like I've said, it's silly in a way, like this film about gods, but they really ground it in, and you get emotionally invested in these people and this character, and it's such a strong moment. And then I get emotional just because I'm watching this. I'm like, wow, finally, like if I had a daughter, like even with my son, I'm proud of it, but it's like just this thought of like, this is going to inspire so many girls to like be powerful and strong and be able to do what they want. I was so happy that they hit the landing and gave us this film, because we need more films like this for sure.
And I think it was her willingness again to commit to what her strength is, which is, don't get me wrong, she can kick ass. She is a warrior through and through. But what she's about is a grander idea. And that's even harder to capture in film. And that's what really moved me by the end of it, because it's a great freaking message.
Yes.
And really well delivered, with a character you love and characters around her that you also love, that are filled up enough to count so that you feel it. You feel those relationships and they matter to you. And to do that in a movie like this, I think is extraordinary. I give it up to every single person involved. Patty Jenkins, well done. Thank you, DC. I gotta say, like, Jeff Johns took over.
Story, Zack Snyder. I kudos to all of the whole team there, because it's a really, and I think for the viewers going in, like, if you're not invested and excited by once you're at no man's land, if you're not ready at the edge of your seat, like, yes, let's do this, then this movie's not for you.
Yeah.
But it's like that was the turning point. I'm just like, I was invested through, but I was like, man, I love this film. It just became greater in a way, wonderful, if you will use the word I keep using.
Wonderful moment. That is exactly the moment.
Yeah.
That is the moment where you are either bought all the way in, or maybe it's just not for you. And I hope that you are bought all the way in that moment, because it is epic. And I think you're going to love this film. And I absolutely think either way, you should go see it. We should all go see this
support
movie.
this one.
I'm going to say, I'm going to pay my dollars, vote with my dollars.
I'm going to go pay again to see it again. Yep, for sure.
100%. So there it is.
Movie of the summer. I'm calling it.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the movie of the summer.
I think it's going to be the movie of the summer too. Loved Wonder Woman. Hope you guys did too. And that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, even if I had little things that I could say, oh, you could pick on this and that, the point is at the end, it just doesn't matter, because it's the story and the characters that do, and they matter here. Go see it.
Check it out. Thanks for watching.
Click here for more awesome Screen Junkies news and click the logo to subscribe.